Hey there, everybody. Welcome. This is our review for The Bachelor, Episode 8. Hometown dates are here.
Yep.
This is sometimes a really good episode of the show, but it's always either like a really good episode or a really boring episode, and I kind of think we're leaning in the boring direction.
Yeah, usually there's some kind of family member that's there that's either like really hard hitting or a little bit odd or a little bit funny or just really memorable. And everyone here was just very normal.
Is the most memorable part of this episode Rachel, like, landing on her face during the skydiving?
Yeah, maybe.
If there was ever a microcosm for this season of The Bachelor, it may be skydiving and falling on
Very
your
well
face.
could be.
We'll talk about the hometown dates, Serena's decision, a lot more. But as we dive in, subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what we've got going on here. We talk about The Bachelor every single week. And if you want to support us more, this weekend is Jessica's birthday, and we're going to have a celebration, and we're also going to be doing a Patreon live Q&A, and we have a link in the description to our Patreon if you are interested in being part of that.
Yeah, we have discussions at the end of every month. It's the last Sunday of every month, and this month falls on my birthday.
It just happens to be even more special, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you.
I don't know if this episode of The Bachelor is all that special or fun.
No, okay, so here's the thing, is that all of the dates that Matt went on, the women were starting to open up more. Michelle was like, I think I'm falling in love with you, and he answered her with a kiss, and then Brie was like, I think I'm falling in love with you, and he said, thank you, which is the worst.
Yes.
And we already know that him and Rachel have said that they're falling in love with each other. So I was kind of like, oh, this is all just not progressing with anybody else.
I think at this point, we all have to assume that Rachel is going to be the person Matt picks at the end.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the headlines that we've seen over the past couple of weeks suggest that as well. It's just, he's clearly more into her than almost anyone else. And here's the thing about some of it. Just on the show itself, I don't know anything about Rachel. I mean, we've learned about Rachel through the press, but this show hasn't given us much. Like, I'm so much more attached to Michelle and Matt than I am Rachel and Matt.
Michelle is so great. I like her so much. She's so funny, and she's just really charismatic, and she's so cute, and I love seeing all her students. Like, there's so much to like about Michelle.
This was my favorite part of the episode, was the video conference with Michelle's students, because
Loved it.
you know, the great thing about kids is that they don't have any filter, and so they will ask these just, like, horrendously uncomfortable things that you don't want to answer.
That was great.
Are you guys getting married? Like, I wanted the moment to be like,
So wholesome.
where is your wedding registry? Can you give me the actual physical address of the ceremony? Like, just give me an hour of the kids asking Matt weird questions, and this would have been like a 20% better episode.
Oh, for sure. They were adorably cute. It was really wholesome. I really like Michelle, and I wish that she would win.
I know. It's like, what does Michelle got to do? Is Michelle just being penalized because she showed up late? Like, has Matt taken it somewhere within his soul, all those nasty things that everyone said?
Yeah, I just don't know. Because then, yeah, we moved into Rachel, and there was the whole skydiving thing, and this show really loves to have these types of dates where somebody's gonna get hurt, because it seems like whenever somebody does get hurt, it brings the relationships closer together.
That is true. And, okay, first and foremost, thumbs up or thumbs down on skydiving as the idea of a romantic date?
No, not even a not romantic date. Don't take me there. If I was brought somewhere where it's like, and this is what we're doing, and be like, I am never seeing you again. It is completely done. I am not interested. No.
Yeah.
No, it's too, I don't know. It's too crazy for me. I like to not do things that have a risk of death. I'm good. Reading, crocheting, hanging out with my dog. I like this kind of stuff.
Here is the one circumstance I might consider it. If you were dropping me from the
Wow,
sky.
you're way more bolder than
Okay, this is very specific.
things we're learning about Matt
See,
tonight.
I do it
Very
if
specific.
You are falling into a 1,000-foot tall pile of just money, and I land softly on all the money,
really
and then I take all. No, this is very soft money.
Oh,
See,
soft
in my
money.
dream,
it's not
fine.
real money.
There's no risk of death. Well, yeah, we've already
There's
established.
no risk of death.
Yes, I will do it if there is no risk of death and there is a lot of soft money I can fall on.
I will do it for no reason ever. I don't care how much money is waiting for me on the ground.
See, okay, this date was terrible. The whole thing about the possibility that Rachel just looked like she was just discombobulated and everything else after.
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel like they set up these types of dates, or like the dates where everybody's punching everybody because they want somebody to have some sort of small accident. Nothing is going to kill them or break their bones or anything, but something that will bring these people together.
When it comes to the families, I have nothing bad to say about Michelle's family. They're almost too nice and too pure for what we're talking about
Michelle's
here.
family's great. I mean, all the families feel like they were pretty great.
I have some questions about Rachel's father. First and foremost, did he just come do this after like stopping by a Danny McBride impersonator convention? Like, he looks like he's straight out of, like, I don't know, vice principals, or he's founded down.
Listen, I absolutely understand where he's coming from with this. And I think if you're not part of a process like this, for looking on it, outside in, this is a very weird thing to wrap your head around. Not only is your daughter dating this guy he's dating a bunch of other people, but it does seem like a very short amount of time. And the thing that they don't really get to see is that, yeah, it's a short amount of time, but in that time, all you have to do is think about Matt and talk about Matt and obsess about Matt. There is like no phones, you're not reading, you're not on the internet, you're not going anywhere, you're with a bunch of other people that are doing the same thing as you. These relationships get really intense really fast. The situation is set up for this.
I think the problem I have the most with Hometown Dates is it's basically every season you get a different coloring book, and sometimes maybe you fill out things in a different color, but like ultimately it's still the same coloring book. Mm-hmm. Every hometown is basically the same thing. You have, in this case, Rachel's dad, while also being a little curmudgeon-y, being like, I know my daughter, she would never fall in love with someone so fast. And it's like, dude, have you never seen this show before?
And maybe he hasn't, right?
Yeah, maybe he hasn't. It's just like every single season, there's like one dad who is like this.
And I think that, like I said, it is difficult to really wrap your head around this process because most people don't fall in love this way. This is very unconventional.
I was a little bit uncomfortable with how much it was just sort of repeated again and again. Oh, Matt needs to get my father's blessing. This has to be a big part of it. And I'm from the South. Like, I understand that this is a little bit of a Southern tradition, but I also feel like it's getting more and more outdated, and just the way it was kind of continually brought up. I think there's a difference between having a conversation about, I'm interested in maybe marrying your daughter someday, and then like the idea of a blessing being reverberated multiple times.
I think it's also difficult to put that pressure on him when your father is so not in the headspace to hear that. He does not want to hear it right now. He doesn't understand the process very well. He's having a hard time wrapping his head around the fact that anyone could actually be in love. That if Matt had asked for his blessing, I don't know if he was ready to give it at that point. Maybe it needs to be the next couple of weeks that are left, really. I mean, who knows? I just don't think her dad was ready to hear it.
I don't think so either, and I think Matt actually did the right thing and not straight up asking it, and I think it was kind of unfair for Rachel to have that expectation kind of going in when Matt doesn't know her father at all, let alone Matt doesn't know how her father will react. And that's why I always found it weird in past seasons where they asked for a blessing, and it's like, this guy met you I don't know, an hour ago. How psyched is he gonna be to say yes?
Yeah, I like the idea. Also, there still is, the fantasy suite dates are coming up. There's still more to this process, and he is still dating other people. He doesn't need to ask 4 people for all their blessings. You ask for the blessing when you're ready to ask the question to one person. So when he was kind of like, I will give him that phone call, that's the time when you're like, I'm going to ask now one person, your daughter. Because the way that her father was kind of reacting at that point, I mean, he would probably have that question, well, what are you asking all the dads this? And the answer would then have to be like, well, yeah, I guess I am.
Yeah, because, I mean, if he says, nope, you're the only one, then that kind of spoils the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So they have a specific way. I think they either have to ask every person, which is annoying, or do the phone thing, which you talked about a minute ago.
Yeah, and that's easy enough to just film.
Okay, so Bree's date, once again, this falls very much in the, it's not altogether eventful, mostly because despite Bree feeling she has a very atypical family, there was still a lot of love there, and
Yes,
I thought they were very nice.
Oh, for sure. They were very nice. And I mean, again, this was like where she's like, I'm falling in love with you. And he was like, thank you. And I was like, oh, no.
I feel so bad for Bree.
No.
Bree
Why is this happening to her?
Bree, there's a storm a-brewing, and I don't think you're aware of it, unfortunately.
No, and I mean, at the end of the episode, she was also like, oh, man, I got the last rose. I don't feel good about that either. I mean, she should be worried.
She should be worried, but how adorable was Bree's little sister?
I know.
Like, these, I'm just, like, grasping at, like, straws for, like, various, like, things that make me go awe on this season that's just full of, like, sadness and despair.
Yeah, and a bunch of villains.
It's like, oh, let's just grasp onto, like, a couple of the little pure things. And that's the bummer, is that everything around Rachel, I mean, not only are the things that she's done terrible, but they're also taking the spotlight away from who I think are 3 seemingly really great women who are here in Bree, Michelle, and Serena. Like, they all seem like really, really nice.
Yeah, they really do. And yeah, it is taking away a lot from them. So let's talk about Serena. So
Oh boy.
She's from Markham in Canada. I was also born in Markham, and it's always like really exciting for me to hear, I see people as, oh, we're from Toronto. I'm like, yeah, I'm from Toronto. I lived in Toronto, whatever, but I was born in Markham. So whenever I actually hear anyone, reality contestant, whoever, is like, I was born in Markham, I'm like, oh man, me too. So I was like, that's really cool. And Serena's really cool.
And then
Okay, and here's my pet peeve about it. So, as I've said, I'm from Canada. I've heard all the stereotypes with the maple syrup and the hockey and the whatever and the whatever. So every American reality show I watch that has a Canadian on it, it is the same thing every time. We're going to have the Canadian date. We're going to have this poutine that looks like it's been sitting there for 5 hours. We're gonna play hockey. We're gonna do shots of maple syrup. I'm like, okay, and what? They're gonna have a Mountie come in riding a moose and handing him free health care. Like, I was just like, it's too ridiculous and it's too much. And I get that everybody has stereotypes from where they're from, but it would be nice to just actually have a proper sort of representation of what Canada's actually like, because at this point, if all you're watching are reality shows, you're going to think you're going to come across the border and meet, there's going to be Mounties everywhere, and that people are going to be at bars drinking, syrup, and everybody loves hockey, and like, that's just not like that.
It was all ridiculous. I mean, don't get me wrong. As a dual citizen who I lived in Canada for many years, I do love poutine. That poutine did look a little bit gross, mind you.
Oh,
but
that poutine looks like it had been sitting there for hours.
Yeah.
Good. So bad.
Good trooper. Matt James will never eat poutine again. It's like, you have been exposed to really terrible poutine, and then it's all over.
At least they had beaver tails. Those are good.
Beaver tails are delicious. And yeah.
But really, it's just fried dough. They're really just like a funnel cake.
Yeah, it's just
a flat funnel cake.
You put a different name on something, and all of a sudden it's exciting and cool.
Yeah.
It was all ridiculous and over the top, because it's like the things I know and love about Toronto are like the multiculturalism and the food and like the just the design of the city, and it's like all this really cool stuff. It's like, okay, yeah, we're gonna reduce this now, and now we're just gonna all go and play hockey. How many times have you, born in Canada, Jess, played hockey?
Zero times have I played hockey. I know like 2 people that play hockey, and they're both in my family. My family has like 47 people in it. Like it's not. I'm not saying nobody likes hockey or nobody enjoys to have syrup on their pancakes, but like everybody really likes syrup on their pancakes. This isn't a Canadian thing. I feel like this is just like I didn't come down here to the States and watch people start like putting other stuff on their pancakes.
Here's the difference. In America, we're a bunch of like cheapos who want to eat garbage, so we just have like a bottle of syrup that we go and pay $3 for, as opposed to like the $15 maple syrup jug.
I think it's just because these stereotypes, like, oh, we're gonna hold up these cards. What's the biggest thing that Canadians say? And then of course it's all, hey. And I mean, like, for anyone who's been watching these videos for the past few years, how many times am I saying A? It's 0. And that's because most people, it's close to 0 or 0. It's not really a thing.
I think
not from Toronto.
I think I've heard you say A once.
Yeah, it's more like pronouncing O's. So you will say
process,
and I'll say process, and that's the same with Serena. It's sort of more subtle differences, but really Canada's very influenced by American culture. We watch a lot of the same stuff. Yeah. We listen to all the same music, like sort of pop culture wise, it's very similar. And I'm not saying like Canada doesn't have its own footprint, but it's not just poutine and syrup. And that's where I'll leave that.
So here's the thing about this date that made this so weird. The first half of it is, oh, let's eat at this buffet of Canadian stereotypes. And then the second part of it, it goes from like really, really dumb to like a really like deathly serious. And all of a sudden Serena's just like, yeah, I'm not feeling this anymore. I'm going to head out. There was no real build up to it. We didn't see that much of this going into this.
No, it felt like that. She's in this environment, again, where it's Matt, you have nothing else to think about. You don't have anyone else to talk to except other people that are talking about Matt. Now she's actually, with her crew. So they're able to give her an outside perspective because they're not sitting around thinking and talking about Matt. They're able to give her that perspective that she can't really get in the house because everybody's in the same boat as her. And they're all just sort of stuck in this bubble. And I think it was once she had the family around her, people she cares about, people she really trusts to bounce things off of, that she could actually think about what is going on. And is it, I just feel these things for Matt because that is all I have time to do here at this place? Or do I feel things for Matt because I actually feel them? So, I mean, that's, for me, the biggest thing that comes out of these hometown dates is perspective. I
like that Serena made the decision that she did. I wish we saw more of this because it's really unrealistic to think that every single person who goes on The Bachelor or The Bachelorette is going to eventually be like, oh, that's the person I want to be with the rest of my life. And it's not because, Matt is some terrible human being or anything. It's just because compatibility, it's a thing. And I am always going to root for people who are able to identify and say, you know what? At the end of the day, this isn't for me. I'm going to leave. I'm going to go out with my head held high and feel like I gave this a chance. Good on you, Serena.
Especially in this type of circumstance, because it's not an environment that lets you really think this type of stuff out. It's very difficult. So, yeah, good for her that she was able to figure that out before she was the last person standing.
And Matt's whole sort of reaction to it, where he was talking about, this really surprised me, it wasn't what I expected, or anything else, it's just like, I feel like Matt was going to send her out at the rose ceremony anyway. I don't...
Really?
Yeah, I do.
I actually thought he was going to send out Bree.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. That whole, whenever there's a, I'm falling in love with you and the answer is thank you. I mean, he didn't do that to Michelle, but she was like, I'm falling in love with you, and he kissed her. And she's like, oh, I got confirmation. I'm like, ooh, you really didn't. But okay, you got more confirmation than I'm falling in love with you. Thank you. Those people always go home. So when I heard that, I was like, oh, Bree is done. Like, unless he does that to Serena as well, Bree is done.
This is where I am with it ultimately, is that I think it's clear Michelle and Rachel are the top two. Like, I think they are going to be the final two at the end of this. I think he's really into Michelle. He's really into Rachel, but he's really into Michelle. I think... I felt like just the awkwardness near the end of that hometown date with Serena, that was going to ultimately be it for him. But yes, the I'm falling in love with you, thanks, is not a good look either.
No, it means you're going home.
Yeah, like, I think both of them were on borrowed time, and it sounds like Bree knew it.
Yeah, for sure. If I was on this show and I said I'm falling in love with you and the person said thank you, that would be the end. Like, I wouldn't have accepted the rose. That would have just been like, I'd be like, okay, then clearly this is going nowhere. Thank you? Get out of here.
It was also the thing with Bree's baby sister. Like, I was watching Matt's body language with that, and like, it was adorable, but he did not seem... He didn't seem fully comfortable in a way. Like, it felt like it was a lot for him to take in at once. And I'm not saying, oh, Matt hates babies or anything like that. I just think there might have been a part of him that was just like, this is a lot. And this is with somebody who may not end up being my person, who's not at the top of my list.
It's possible. I mean, he says he wants lots of kids, and he may, but he may not want them right away.
Exactly. So, okay, we're winding down all of this, so I'm gonna cut open a slice of beef here that I have with Twitter. Here's a real hot take, everyone. Weird, controversial things are being done on Twitter.
All right, let's have it.
The Bachelor's Twitter account, they retweeted someone tonight saying, I love Rachel. Really? Read the room, Bachelor Twitter. Like, this boggled my mind that I know that you want to have, like, an illusion while the show is on, but it's like, Rachel has done some terrible stuff that led to Chris Harrison saying some terrible stuff. We talked about a lot of this last week. The link is in the description below.
Yep.
It's just like, how do you retweet that? You don't have something contractual that says you have to support all of your contestants equally.
Right, and my theory behind it is that she wins. And I think that's also why Chris did what he did as well. I think everyone on the show knows that she wins. They don't want to have an end to this season that is going to be this. But the problem is that the end of the season is going to be this. And you can tweet whatever you want, but it doesn't change anything. Like, it's just, you're in the mess. You have to continue through the mess to be able to get through the mess on the other side of it. You can't just pretend like things aren't happening and be like, we love Rachel. Stop it.
Speaking of things that are going to be very uncomfortable, next week is the Women Tell All, hosted by Chris Harrison, who will be everywhere because this was taped before everything went down.
Yes.
We will be here next week to talk about all this.
Yes,
oh boy.
Oh boy!
So for now, what did you guys think about hometown dates? Who are you really rooting for at this point? And it has to be Michelle, right? Michelle. See, Michelle, you deserve so much more than this dumpster fire of a season.
Know, right?
But anyway, if you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, give us a like, support us further, check those links to the store, our Patreon. We'll see you here next time.